Oof, let me tell you. Long day, good day. Long day and a good day. Yep, we're live. Rumble, YouTube, X, and Twitch. Yep, we're back on the Twitchster. On the Twitch. Yeah, we were asked to go back to Twitch. Apparently, some people are watching on Twitch. Anyway, welcome to the show, CJTV. Tonight's episode, the school industry. Yes, the school, the active shooter. The shooter amongst you, the shooter drill. What do you do? How many dollars are thrown at that? Yeah. You got Billy Bob, Joe, Jim Bob. I was a super Rocky Bullwinkle SWAT SEAL Ranger Reconnaissance Ninja, and I should come teach you. Yeah, we've seen a couple of those in our lifetime, haven't we? All of us have. Yep. Yeah. Let's get into a few things. This is academic. It's not political. I don't know. We've been asked to do political, but I'm not a politics fan. We're not going to do it. At least I don't want to. Maybe the researchers do. All right. This episode, as of now, 1,623 downloads in 137 days. All of our research, all of our data we put on MediaFire and link it up to our Facebook page at Dr. Mike Gurley, CJTV, lowercase JTV. And I've got it on the LinkedIn stuff. So, but if you want our research data to use for your own research, and we just release APA edition, literature review white papers, nothing like we're going to publish out through the Haitianite cruise ship death on a boat virus. Yeah. Maybe we need Fauci back to address that. It's a great question. How did it get here? 1,623 and 32,000 plus views, 137 days. Awesome. Let's get on with this actual topic here, and let's shut this file download and self-identifying how great the researchers are down. All right, let's get to it. The money that you spend, it's a real frustrating problem. I've always had conversations with people. Hey, Mike, what's the best, class to go to? Hey, who's got, the best trainer for, my business? Who's the best, crash, civilian response to active shooter, best alert instructors, or best this, or best private entities, or best corporations, or best companies with, certified, bona fide certified stamped on both sides guys and girls. Yeah, or a few girls. Anybody ever met a female SEER instructor? Pick you up, literally put you through I don't want to say a wall, but, here's why the active shooter training industry is so saturated with low quality providers. Yes, low quality. And I've talked about this before, some of the videos I've seen. It's a low barrier, okay? It's a low bar of entry. Anyone can hang a shingle. Anyone can pick up a piece of paper and draw a diagram or come up with a fantastic idea of how to, bullshito your way into something. And they call themselves active shooter trainers. Why? Because they have a little bit of experience in law enforcement. They have a little bit of experience in the military, but they've never seriously encountered an active shooter. Yeah. You'd be surprised. How many true instructors for these companies, corporations, even law enforcement that, do the alert stuff or the crash stuff, nothing bad about it, when it comes to law enforcement, that actually deal with, more active shooters than military veterans do. You'll be surprised how many military veterans have never picked up a firearm or ran a firearm except for qualification day. Just is what it is. A low barrier. Anyone can come up with a plan on how to respond to an active shooter. There's no federal licensing requirement, period. There's nothing mandatory. There's no certification body. There's no Forensic Psychology Certification Board of the United States or the Americas or the European Theater or Union or different continent. There's nothing like that for active shooter training. I know, the drill, the title, the school, but it applies to anything, business, church, entity. It's who sells you the best propaganda? Who sells you the best sales pitch? Who sells you the best? Look at my guys and look at all of our gear and our kit and how cool it looks, and the standardization and the curriculum development, the syllabus. Who's reviewing it? Who's going through it? Who? Look at the latest civil and tort issues. Who shoots teachers with 20 millimeter airsoft rounds that are running 470 foot per second? Well, a specific company did without pre-advisory. Now they're paying out the wazoo. Yes, do your own research. If you want it, I'll send it to you. Send me an email. I'll send you the company, and I'll send you the state, and I'll send you the actual case detail for the civil lawsuit and the tort where the company lost and are paying out. School districts, corporations, government agencies often have to spend money on a safety budget, right? We're not talking about fire extinguishers. We're not talking about, fire alarms or, specific, anti-badger trap devices for the classrooms. No, we're talking about crazy, Bob, senorita psychopath coming in. And I got a few friends that are, in, the school entities, and I got some friends that are, law enforcement. I got some friends that are, instructors in specific realms of active shooter. And they'll, they always tell me things are different throughout the board. Just depends on the company who's spending the money, how much you spend. It creates a market evaluation of quality conclave. Yes, a conclave, kind of like the Catholic Church. Who is the best? Who should be selected? Are we going to send some white smoke or some black smoke up? It's a conclave of evaluation. All right. Vendors that really, to be honest with you, my experience, this is just guys' experience, military, law enforcement, got a couple days in this theater. Vendors sell fear rather than skill. Yes, fear. Well, it's not if, it's when. Well, we got that. We understand that cool cliche statement of when it's going to happen. You need to be ready. It's the slick marketing beat. It's the upbeat. It's the substance of the evaluation. Kind of like the FBI's crappy active shooter videos. Oh my God. I know I've said that here a few times. I'm not going to get down on the ground with my buddy and be on the X, just not, let alone be on it. I am the X. Horrible. The marketing, the strategy. Companies that push the active shooter, the drill, the training, they're not just going out there with a simple card saying, hey, my name's Bob, I own this company, and I shoot active trainer, I teach active shooter training, whatever the hell their sales pitch is. They're not going out there to the local bar and grill. It's not a political venue. They're not, trying to get, the populist vote. They're trying to get your dollars, your money, to keep the doors to their business alive, to sell that feature. It's kind of like live streaming. We're not monetized here on this show, but the majority of live streamers that have thousands of people that view them and, chit chats and political venues and doom and gloom, well, they're making money doing this. So is your active shooter industry that is showing up to your place of employment, your school, whatever the atmosphere would be, private business, corporation, church, who knows, man, university, and teaching this, they're making money. Even the ones that are supplying data, information, aid and help to law enforcement agencies that are going out and teaching active shooter to the public, society. Where do you think the equipment comes from? The time. Who's paying the paycheck for the one that is teaching the class, that went through the class, that really has no true skill? And when I say true skill, anybody ever seen the FBI's active shooter video about, the staircase, especially the 2-directional, the 3-directional, poke the head across, make your head a pumpkin for a canoe for a bad guy? Yeah, that's it. Contracts go to the lowest bidder, the best salesperson. Save that dollar. How about that? Your employer is saving that nickel so that they can have it for the business, but not your own hide. What do you think about that, Foley? Yeah, friend of mine up in the abominable snowman land. Yeah, trauma theater versus real training. Now, many companies profit from high drama, all right? Emotional simulation. So does the military. So does law enforcement. The time to train is not in the incident. The time to train is the time to train so that you're prepared, ready to respond, dissemination of labor, cognitive ability, evaluation, extemporaneous ability, repetition, training, knowledge, knowing what to do. It's a live fire bank, man. Stress, trauma, firing blank rounds, sim rounds, blue rounds, blue, for those of you in the military and law enforcement, you know what I'm talking about, the blue. Before they came out with, the bolt carrier groups that were actually designed for that, take you 3 to 4 hours to get all the gunk out of your bolt, if not eliminate and just totally destroy it. Aggressive role players. Who are you going to pick to be the angry guy, the angry girl, the running around with the Ultra 1000 or the blue tip, system series. That's if you got the money to buy that, $1,400 pretend rifle to train with that fires those markers, those 22 millimeter, those 6 millimeters, those 20 grams, those rounds, little BBs, selling the fear. It's fun. It's great. I've been an aggressor many a times. It's fun. Believe me. It's great being the bad guy. But who is actually the one in charge of the instructional training? Who is the one that is in charge of the emotional stimulation of the client, the customer? The emotional experience gets confusing. It gets confused with actual preparedness. A lot of times the companies focus on, the confusion, the drama, the collapse. It's kind of like all those cool programs to where you pay me $18,000 and I'll teach you how to be a man. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Come join our program. We'll teach you how to pass NDOC and selection, all these special military groups, and the majority of them are garbage. Run around screaming at people, trying to do things that they saw on TV. What do you think these companies are doing? Where do these employees come from? And here's the worst thing. One comes from the military, one comes from law enforcement, and they have a pedigree. Of course, they have a MOS, AFSC, a skill set, spent some time there. Just because you were a super ninja Navy SEAL Delta door gunner in space and you killed aliens on Mars does not mean you are adequate or equipped to train for an active shooter situation in a business corporation that involves psychological evaluation in the moment, split second, snap of the finger decisions, infraneous, because it's not what you were trained for. Completely two different things. Yeah, I was MARSOC. I was Shrig back in the day. I was an ASOS. I was an ODA. Okay, great, man. That's completely different from this sector of the world. We're not in Fallujah, all right? We're not in Afghanistan. We're not in Somalia. We're not in Cambodia. We're not. We're in the good old United States or some other country on the planet that's falling victim to a civilian active shooter, not a military aggressor. Different things. And for those of you like, this guy's full of crap. Those of you that are in the military and law enforcement, you understand every word coming out of my mouth, or everybody that's in this career field that I'm talking about, you're getting it. You understand, except for the ones that are less than qualified. Now you're getting angry because someone's calling you out. Now, I'm not going to call out the companies because there's always that, distortion of fact and tort and civil lawsuit, but they exist. Unlike CPR training, American Heart Association, as the gold standard, so to say, for CPR, unless you're, TECC or TCCC, where CPR is just not a gambit on the wheel of response because the damage is already done. Active shooter response has a competing framework, but I will give you these companies. Alice, avoid, deny, defend, run, hide, fight. Then, that's the crash version, but it's not the alert version for law enforcement. The response, there's no single authoritative body validating which method works better. Does avoid, deny, defend? Well, how are you going to confuse somebody? Avoid, deny, defend. You get teacher Janet that doesn't understand the difference between concealment and camouflage, and now they're in an active shooter moment. Avoid, deny, defend. How are they going to break that down? Where's the real course? A day? 2 days? Yeah, you're not instilling anything because you're cramming it down their throat. You're making it emotionally, traumatizing, the experience itself, the confusion ratio, the awareness for preparation. Where's it at? There's no framework for your evaluation. There's no standard for it. Yep. How do you validate which is the best? Well, that comes with research. Calling the people that know what they're doing, calling the people or making some friends with people that have actually had the experience. Yep, my first active shooter event was in a grocery store, believe it or not, in the middle of nowhere, somewhere that I never thought it would ever happen. A grocery store. Pretty horrible. A grocery store. Yeah. A lot of cartons of milk got hit that day. I would say, half-gallon cartons, Ex-military, law enforcement, credentialism. Many trainers lean on military or police background as credential. That's great, man. That's fantastic. But you got to back that up. You just can't say I'm a detective and I work forensically at crime scenes. I've heard that a lot. And then I'll ask a question or two and I get looked at like Scooby-Doo or Shaggy eating a, drug cookie. Because, okay, great. Leave the terminology out that you're not qualified, certified, bona fide, or stamped on both sides in, and just stick to the simplistics of it. All right. You're a detective. Great. You went through SIP or, CIP or something like that, but you never went through the true follow-on forensic programs for the preparation for presentation under the use or acquirement of specific practitioner skills. Ex-military law enforcement credentialism does not guarantee you that credential or skill to be an active shooter or an alert or a instructor, even if it's your own little business, because you're like, oh, I'm law enforcement, not making enough money, so I'm going to go open my own business here and teach everybody in the city active shooter response and have drills everywhere. That does not give you the credentials. Where are your credentials at? Investigate the people thoroughly. Reach out to people. All right. Combat or patrol experience does not automatically translate into the civilian workplace or corporation or business or school, academic or any type of accreditation, standard practitionership in society. That doesn't. Combat or patrol. It's two different things. That's like saying someone that's a Gracie Brothers jiu-jitsu expert and Krav Maga and PPCT is going to go in and pick up a sword and practice Aikido or Kendo. No, unless they want to get their appendages cut off. It's combat, right? It's a patrol, it's a maneuver, it's an awareness, it's a response, it's a setup, it's a prep, but it's two different elements. Yeah. I just brought up the old school Gracie Brothers and PPCT and Krav Maga. Different monsters, different things, right? Tactical appreciation. The tactics, the appropriate response for armed responders sometimes can be wrong and even dangerous because you're teaching unarmed civilians. That's why I got such a problem with the FBI's crappy videos. Those videos are horrible. And yes, you can quote Dr. Mike Lee G. Gurley. Those videos are horrible, Cash. The hell? God, what you have making those videos? Some new people at Quantico thinking of how to sell the PowerPoint and the pleasure to society? No. There's no mandatory post-training assessment for teaching this. I'm going to go out and get my own company. Look at me. I've got the post standard right here on this sheet of paper for my state. Certified law enforcement. I'm an expert now. We've got patrol. Been in a couple little hand-on incidents. Chase little Bob down or little stomach ache for a nickel bag. Yes, I'm an expert. No, you're not. Most contracts do not require a measurable outcome in active shooter training in the industry. Where's the course syllabus? Where's the outcome? Where's the limitations or the learning outcomes that are expected? What you should know, what you should be able to do. Do you really think these people are going to be practicing every day after you leave, oh mighty instructor of the active shooter scenario? No, they're not. They're going back to teaching, academia, working, making plans, making PowerPoints, making money for the corporation or the entity that they work for, making things move, shake. Yes, be the world kicker in the business. It's not a continuous cycle like pageantry of getting ready for law enforcement every day, pageantry getting ready for a deployment. That's why I like people saying, yeah, I'm deploying to this country tomorrow or next week. Wow, you're quick. You just bypassed all of that, prep and training and all that good 30, 60 day, however many, those of you that are paramilitary have been deployed, you know what I'm talking about. You know who these people are. I'm going to Afghanistan next week. Really? Man, you must be James Ninja of the DOD. So there's no measurable outcome. A company can deliver a 2-hour PowerPoint, right? Collect a payment. There's no track whether the participants retained anything or could apply anything under stress. Limitations. There are, hundreds, if not thousands of YouTube videos and companies. There's one that, strikes me. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. I'm not going to play it here due to copyright stuff, but when I say it, you'll probably understand it. There's I don't want to say the bullshito, but the one, to where people watch different techniques and then you'll see these two guys, they're, two black guys, and they do the scenarios and then suddenly it switches and one guy's in heaven because the scenario and reality would not work, typically known as Bushido. I got a friend of mine who's a a martial arts instructor, and he's got all kind of cool belts and stuff, competition and stuff. He's like the a Bruce Lee of my alternate lifestyle to follow, which I'm not, that martial art guy or nothing like that. I'm more of a range guy or, incise weapon guy, knives, tomahawks. That's kind of me. But, me and him have, quite a few conversations on that, just the stress factors itself, just because you go through the, retention of the couple of hours or the presentation does not guarantee you're going to be able to apply anything, because every active shooter situation is different. So it's kind of the attentiveness of investigating the company that's coming to teach you. And what I have seen out of schools, and this is just this guy, okay, just this guy, churches are the worst. A church. Now, I've seen several videos to where, churches have the glass doors or they had the wood doors, and all the patrons in the church are pulling out their GATs, their Glock 43Gs or their SIGs or their, super cool, powerhouse freaking, secondaries. And there's some guy in there acting as a threat with a primary. You can see him walking through the glass, and everybody's barricaded behind the electric organ and the wood. It's stupid. That's not preparing you for anything except for cashing in. Well, it's preparing your family to cash in on your life insurance check if you have it. That's about it. Who's really training you? Who are the participants? What are they training you to do? Application under stress. All right. What good training really actually looks like? Yes, I'm going to break it down for you. For comparison, so to say, quality programs, all right? Quality programs tend to be evidence-based and updated after real incidences. Yes, real, meaning they're going to give you, like what we do here on CJTV, a literature review of scholarly resource, but the agencies that do this are going to have access to the information, case study, evaluation on what happened in similar instances for similar entities, schools, universities, businesses, churches. And the focus is going to be on decision making under stress, not just procedures. The worst thing is stress. I'm not talking about, shoot the teachers with the blue gun, or, make them swell up, with the airsoft gun, or, something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about evaluating everything and making sure the clientele understand the first critical skill: stress management, yourself, mentorship, leadership. It all starts with the one entity. So when you get to that one agency that just breaks it down, to what you're going to do and how you're going to defend yourself and become super ninja with a gun, or a stick, or a pool cue, or a Bible, or a school book. Good grief. I mean, why don't you go ask the ROTC kids? What did they have to do with their active shooter? Well, they know what I'm talking about there, right? The officer that got shot by the active shooter, and the ROTC students had to come to a reckoning. Yeah, that doesn't guarantee that they can teach either. Stress. You don't think that hippocampus, that amygdala, that inventory of trauma is still triggered? Yes, it is. Now, the comparison, quality, it's got to be tailored to a specific environment. School, office, hospital, everything is different. Nothing is the same. It's kind of like the crash. Run, hide, duck, dodge, weave, Daffy Duck on a bridge. Deny, defend, fight. Where? You got to evaluate the quality of the programs, meaning you've got to have comparison. Just like the quality program is going to have the case study of what actually happened and survivors and recent incidences that compare to the school, the office, or the hospital. It's got to be tailored toward the environment. Chat's opening. If you're watching, give me a thumbs up. Give me your thoughts on this thing about evaluation. We're live on X. Let me see real quick. Yeah, Twitch, X, Rumble, and YouTube. So it's got to be tailored to the specific environment. Why? There's no regulation to it. Nobody's regulating it. There's no syllabus. There's no regulation. There's no OSHA standard for an active shooter. God, I wish there would. Well, was, right? Well, I can't go shoot this place up because of this OSHA standard here. That would affect the response. Yeah. Quality programs come from providers with variable peer-reviewed methodology. Yes, just like this show, peer review. Meaning, when we release research data, it's been peer-reviewed. We don't even do anything in 2025, barely do things in 2024. It's not enough time for peer review. Peers in the CJ, psychology, sociology atmosphere to really review the study, really get down to the kinetics, do their own, literature review of the methods, limitations, restrictions, all of that. It has to come from a verified provider that has done a peer review of what is being taught as it applies to the entity, the school, the office, the corporation, whatever, the bar, the church, whatever the building is. All right, it's genuinely interesting, institutional, and it's a hard gambit to navigate through. How do you get this information? Well, you've got to reach out. You've got to reach out to other companies that have used this company that is going to teach you. How did that positively affect the entity, your business, your church, your school? Here's why no single validated framework has ever been released. Verified, bona fide. No single learning outcome, no single framework for how to respond. The core problem is that good evidence is nearly impossible to get, period, when it comes to an active shooter. Good evidence. Why? The shooter's dead. You're not going to hear the words coming through the mouth because this is not working anymore. Process, cognitive thought, it's gone. The active shooter events are rare as compared to vehicle crashes. Active shooter events are rare as compared to physical assaults, rare as compared to knife, stick, blunt force trauma. They're rare, unpredictable, chaotic. Yeah, you can't run controlled experiments on that because you don't know what the exigent circumstance is. You don't know what the target is. You don't know when it's going to happen. Survivors can't reliably reconstruct what they did versus what they think they did. It's a reconstruction. It's not a reenactment. Hey, let's go have this active shooter event again and put somebody else in stress and trauma, and let's go kill some people just so that we can evaluate what they think they did. They, meaning the survivor. That is why we have victimology, pre and post. What's going on? Are you talking to true victims? Do active shooter companies bring true victims to the establishment to talk to the customer? Odds are, from my research, the answer is high percentages of no, they do not. You always get the opinion in the words of a law enforcement officer, somebody military, somebody that thinks that they're Rocky, Ninja, Rambo, active shooter god. Low qualifications. Many incidents end before law enforcement arrive. They end. Law enforcement gets there. Think about this. Think about the procedure, right? Think about it. We're going to have a show on this here coming up soon. The moron couch quarterback that critiques the incident, watching and live streaming law enforcement. We're going to have that hosted by yours truly. So they're done before they're over. I mean, they're done before law enforcement gets there. The perimeter's set up. Negotiators negotiate. They don't command, right? Commanders don't negotiate. If you're in law enforcement, you know what I'm talking about. So it's over. How can you get in there and predict what's going on? How do you set up the framework of the learning outcome or the evaluation based on the scene? You're guessing. You're assuming. Because the victims can't even tell you what really happened. Let me see. MIT shooting, Brown University, the student that walked right up to the suspect, as the suspect was at the door, couldn't even tell you, didn't say crap. Just limited information. Shock. The gun, the black, the size. That's it. Nothing. Couldn't even tell you what they did. I got out, went down the hallway. Didn't even bother to go back and look for anybody. So what are you teaching? Run, distance yourself, avoid, hide, fight. Well, how come this kid didn't fight right there at the doorway like a ninja? Maybe he didn't have the less than bona fide or certified instructor. God, I'm kind of glad the kid left, because if he had one of those less than desirable outcome instructors, he'd probably be dead right now. Yep, many incidents are over before law enforcement arrives, making the outcome attribution murky. Attribution meaning the results, attributive data to teaching in the future. The evidence is based essentially on a collection of case studies from tragedies. It's not experimental data, because you're not going to experiment it. What, you're going to put your survivors that are under trauma back into the reconstruction? Yeah. Go find me that. Go find me the peer review case studies. If you find a company that says, yes, we've got survivors that come teach with us and we've used them to develop our... Shut the front door. I want to see it. I want to see the consensual ethical documentation and the release for what this survivor had to go through to make your program great. We're not talking about cops. We're not talking about military. We're talking about standard, typical society, victimization. Jurisdictional and liability, yep, are deeply fragmented in this, yes. In the U.S. public safety training atmosphere, training is decentralized by design. For police departments, school districts, federal agencies, DHS, EMA, FEMA, whatever, all the alphabetics, all right? Private security firms will have all the independent authority. Private. They're private. They're not answering to anybody. They're developing. Private entities that we're active shooter construct entity. We're private. We can teach you how to survive. Get home to your loved ones so that they're not cashing in your insurance check. Yeah, they're non-regulated. Period. Public safety training is decentralized by design. Separate entities. A police department is not a sheriff's department. A police department is not state police. State police investigators are not state troopers. Different decentralizations, authority, different response, different training, different levels of cognitive ability. Thus, kind of roles kind of near the forensic preparation for presentation based on practitioner expertise and certification. Yeah. Look at that. All kinds of stuff. Hope you got that. So the private entities, yeah, independent. They're their own independent authority, and independent liability is exposable. There's exposure to that. Proof's already been done. I set it up front. Teachers being shot with airsoft rounds. No consent was given. Trauma, fear. This is what it's going to be like. Ha ha, surprise. Injuries, lawsuit. Yes, liability exposure. So who's really just going to jump in there and subject themselves to a liability exposure without consent, violate ethical practices of corporation, and put someone in trauma, even though it's not a real active shooter situation, but they've experienced it in their head and they felt the pain. They just didn't bleed and have to go to the emergency room, or they quite possibly did bleed, depends on where they were hit with that, white BB or that thing that leaves some paint on your body. Incentives, all right? Corporations, companies, each has the incentive to develop or adopt framework they control individually and solely. Man, it's like you getting a piece of paper and some crayons and a pen. Independent solely. Design your art. Design your procedure. Think about this. Christmas dinner, grandma cooks the turkey this way. Grandpa sucks, he cooks it this way. Or grandma sucks because grandpa does it better. It's the same freaking thing. Jump on the internet, do your search. Trust me, I did it for like a couple hours. Our methodologies, our practices, what we teach, how we do it's nobody's the same. No one. So the liability exposure. Who's going to cause an injury? Who's not? FBI. Don't get off the X. Be the X. In the middle of the base. God. Yep, there's no deferment or no ability to be deferred to a national standard. Nothing's been created. There's no CDC equivalent for an active shooter response with regulatory teeth to bite into the liability aspect of it. Bite into you're going to get people hurt. You're teaching people wrong. It's an impromptu. Hey, Bob, make a puppet show. I don't know how to, but it's an impromptu. Make it up as you go. No active shooter incident is the same. Case study, case relevance. The framework, or frameworks in plural, emerge from different institutional parents. And when I say institutional parents, I'm going to say parents as in information. The parent, the top of the totem pole for the info and where it comes from. Run, hide, fight came out of the DHS in Houston after 2012. Sandy Hook, that period. Run, hide, fight. Run, hide, fight. Run. Thanks, FBI. Let's have a conversation. Run, hide, fight. Yeah. DHS in Houston. Alice was developed by the school principal and a retired police officer and spread through private training contracts. Alice. Yes. Private entity, but, prior law enforcement, but where's the guarantee and protocol that the law enforcement officer actually knows everything that there is to know? Nobody's going to know everything that there is to know because nobody can foresee what's going to happen during that active shooter incident. The ADD, avoid, deny, defend, came from Alert, Texas State, which has federal funding, but no mandate. Yeah, and they actually, I liked it better when Texas taught it before the alphabetic soup had to put their right on the top of the certificate. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Crash, all right, civilian response also traces back to Alert from Texas. Yes, Texas State, the same thing. So there's no set standard. So that's just, 3 different ones that are completely different. One would say, well, they all have the same end result. Yeah, the same end result is survive, period. But what is the validity? What is the credential of the officer or the person teaching the course? It's kind of like fat cop, fit cop. Position 3 or SOOL when you're obese and your muzzle is, at somebody's pelvic region because, well, I'm at SOOL, I'm at 3. Well, where's your muzzle? It's at the pelvic region of the school teacher. I've seen that. I've actually had to correct that. And people get upset. Well, put the Twinkies down. That's all I got to say. Each has a home team with a reputable finance stake, so to say. Each has the home team. I mean, look at it. DHS, Houston. Alert, Texas, federal money. Why? It was great. It was good. Federal government said, Texas has got us going on. Let's get our fingers in it. Because we can't come up with our own. We can come up with cool videos that say, hey, when you're out here and you hear that boom, you need to talk with your buddies and evaluate whether it's a gun or not and figure out which way to go. And let's all get down behind this wooden shoe locker, or let's lay down on the middle of the field and say, hey, Bob, I think we need to go. No, your program sucked. So you took something better. Put your own label on it. The pediology, okay, differs from on purpose, okay? It's not just terminology. These aren't just different names for the same thing. These are different attributes. They reflect genuine philosophies, disagreements. Should victims be trained to counterattack? Alice, it's a counter. Yes, Alice is a counter. Alice's program is a counter. Does that increase casualty? Does it put a civilian in the position of to where they have to perform at the level of law enforcement because they've had 1 or 2 classes of PowerPoint? Think of the psychological venue. Are you aiding in developing trauma? Is what it is. Let's look at Uvalde, Texas. Oh, we couldn't go in because we were possibly going to get shot. Anybody ever seen those videos? The arguments, the dilemma, the stagnant cesspool of stupidity in the hallway? Does that increase casualties or reduce them? Who knows? That's the Alice program. Does empowering the people to decide, on the decision tree, does it cause paralysis to an agency that is responding? And when I say cause paralysis to an agency that is responding, it's because under the fight, under the deny, under the become the attacker, now you have the civilians in there. Now you have the potential casualties, the victims in there trying to decide and make the decision tree of, do we go take care of this ourselves because people are dying? Or do we just run and avoid and deny through running? My God, the confusion tree, look at it. Good grief. It's like trying to, pick out which color in the crayon box you want to break first. Yeah, break, because you can't color with a crayon, and, it's going to break eventually. All right. These methods are contested. The value of the questions, the value of the data. It's not just empirical data. It's which one's validation point is harder. Which one makes solid sense? Which one sounds like bullshito? Period. You don't need to agree on, every method working correctly, but you need to agree on the success of living. And that is what success looks like, making it out alive and having those that have experienced it involved in the peer review, the case study, the feedback, the evaluation, and then the procedures to be set with what? Policy, learning outcomes, a framework, a syllabus, so to say. I've seen some of these agencies and their course designs, syllabus that look like a freaking child wrote it. Alert has done the most rigorous work. I'm just going to be honest with you. Alert. And their research shows that, the protective or the, reactive response works. Fleeing and fighting back, trends to, the trend is to reduce casualty, right? Flee first, as compared to positive shelter. Projectiles penetrate, kind of like the FBI's video. Let's get get down behind this wooden box that people put gloves and shoes, and let me have a conversation with you on the camera and tell you what. You run, dum-dum, run. Passive sheltering. It's kind of like that, thing I was talking about in the church. All these superstars jumping up out of the pews with their gats, pulling them out of their boot holsters and out of their crotch waistband, looking all cool, sight picture weapon retention, presentation. You've got a secondary. This guy on the other side of the wall or other side of the glass, shooting through the glass at the church parishioners and, blazing up the, altar, has a 7.62 by what the hell ever, 5.4. Good grease. You're going to lose. Just one of those passive sheltering, hide behind the wooden organ. Yeah, but the sample sizes of, all of these courses and, all of these, programs that are developed, they're small. Why? Active shooter events are rare as compared to other acts of violence, right? Confounding variables. What are the variables? What are the specific variables that everyone has to break down? What do we know more about one incident as we know compared to another? Are we ending the training badly? And do we really need to escalate the attentive measure in one part of the course as not so much in another part of the course? Why? Because it's an active shooter event. But I'm here to tell you, this guy said it, alert is the most accurate. It's the most accurate. And crash is, pretty much, a response out for alert to work with dissemination of labor, ICS, incident command, all that good stuff with alert. So if you've ever had a crash course before, by an alert instructor, you've probably had, on the Richter scale of good to bad, the better. Not perfect, but is what it is. And, it's the caliber of the instructor. All of this we know. The honest answer is that most experts will acknowledge off record. They're not going to say it. Experts. All right. The framework, most of them agree it's, 70 to 80% actionable within, the device response of an active shooter incident. And when you leave the training, you leave it. You can or you can't. There are no don't clusters. You're going to have to make a decision, Don't play dead against the active shooter. Don't. We learned that in Columbine, did we not? Anybody ever seen the real Columbine videos? All the videos? Yeah. Ones that were shot laying down, playing dead, getting shot again. Yeah, the disagreements are loud and, they're marginalistic when it comes to the, 70 to 80% of, the valuable of the actionable data in the actual course that you're attending. But it's all made around perception, developed around perception. Do it yourself. Do your own research. Compare some of the websites and some of the learning outcomes, what they work off of. Alert, Crash, Alice, DHS, Texas State, the Fed stamp. Yeah, when it's got a Fed stamp, that just means they came in, liked it, and threw some money on it so that they could put their stamp on it and say, hey, look at us. We're helping. Yeah, you can develop it on your own. Yep, and I'm pro-law enforcement, pro-Fed agency too, a few of them. The, let me see, the proliferation of it, yeah, the name makes the framework, all right? The name particularly reflects branding. It's kind of like, the military and law enforcement, different names of, different elements, different divisions. It's like, okay, I was a ranger. Got a ranger tab. Okay, is it gold or is it red? There's a big difference for you rangers. Hear the word ranger. Cool. Is it gold or red? People will be like, what is he talking about? Those that are rangers understand that. Yep, the proliferation, the name, the framework, it's the reflecting brand, the trademark, the competition. Is it genuine? Is it not genuine? Does it have a scientific divergence? Meaning, are they saying bullet? Or are they saying projectile? Are they saying missile? Are they saying ricochet versus deflect? Are they saying broken apart versus what? The terminology, fragmentation. Are they saying bullet hole, entry, exit, penetration, perforation? Bullet hole to the car. That's a defect to the vehicle. So what is the terminology and what are you getting it from? Who is delivering the information? What is the framework? What is the blending of the trademark? Does it look cool? Or is it real data? Do you need to show up looking like Ricky Ticky Taffy Rambo and all your kit to teach this? Or can you just show up in some pants, boots, and a shirt and teach and be 100% outcome positive? Yeah. That's one of those things like investigators. Like to go in with that badge and that gun blazing. Hell no. Dress that down, man. Get in there and get comfortable. Active shooter. It's a domain where the institution is fragmented, period. Liability concerns, evidentiary limits. It's the genuine value of the who's who. Doing your own research. Having the commonality of sources to reach out to. Disagreements are going to happen, okay? We're not going to have that 100% perfect convergence. Remember that 70 to 80% framework chance of it's not going to be a grievance against each other, but what is the positive outcome? What's the common emergency? What is the preparedness field desired end result? Law enforcement response, civilian, run, hide, make yourself an X on the playground? Please. Please, please, please. The complex, the school security market has exploded. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry that sells everything from ballistic blankets, heavy protective cover, market shields for students from gunfire, facial recognition cameras, packaged under the promise of keeping your kiddos safe. There's something called research, right? Peer review. You don't think an active shooter's doing the same thing? That's why active shooters look for the weak targets. They don't look for the hard targets. Nashville, the shooter. One target had security. The other target did not have security. Perfect example. Then there's sociological. Yeah. Extremism group, race, this type of group, this type of hate group, this type of group, LGBTQ killers, Democrat killers, Republican, left wing, right wing. There's so much into it. Is there a, I don't know, protective cover against a left-wing active shooter? What, one that will be shot at and one that won't be shot at? A rainbow protective? No, there's not. All this crap that's out there. School districts face enormous pressure from society, from the parents, from politicians, especially bureaucracy, the media too. The media is the worst. Yeah, the media always tells the truth. CNN, this, that, Fox, Newsmax, this, or whatever the heck it is that you watch. Do something. It's kind of like the live streamer that talks crap about, garbage about law enforcement when there's a standoff or a shooting. They're creating the cycle of visible security, right? Visible. In their own words. What one's doing good, what one's doing bad, what should be done. What's being sold? What is the marketeer? What is the one that society is going to look at and say, kind of like a politician. Those vote for me signs aren't cheap, are they? It's the money. And society makes it feel like a moral obligation rather than an evidence-based decision. Based on what? The influence of those that train, the influence of the companies, the corporations that put it out there that society needs needs this, needs to be aware, needs to be ready. You're not going to be ready for an active shooter because you're not in the mind of the active shooter. You're not the exigent circumstance. You're not the psychosis, the psychological evaluation prehand before the active shooter event happens to prevent it and or know the response. They're all different. Kind of like the training's all different. Some of it's good. The majority of it's crap. Garbage. Yes, I said it, and you can quote this guy, the majority. I'm not going to go into the companies because of that had my, advisors here, my research say, Dr. Gurley, don't say the companies. Remember, there's tort, civil, liability. Liability. I just covered that. Company liability. Yeah. But, there is that company that used, airsoft rounds and shot the teachers without them knowing it was going to happen. Ooh, that was a painful mistake, right? Money. Yeah. Educational institutions transforming schools into consumer markets for surveillance. Yes. Well, if it's that high end, why does the bureaucracy and the politicians Why are they not hammering down on that? It's kind of like going into the, 7-Eleven alcohol store as a detective. Hey, can I get the video footage? Oh, it is there for image. It doesn't work. Deterrence. There's no federal standard for what contributes an effective measure against an active shooter, and there's no federal standard for what constitutes an effective measure of training for an active shooter drill and or training scenario or learning outcome. That's horrible. But yet everybody's worried about active shooters. Which measure should the vendor use? Which means vendors can sell untested product or produce without accountability. Hey, take this. We guarantee you this will end in this way, result like this. It'll train you to respond this way. Unless you're repeating it, you're going to forget it as soon as you hear it in one ear, goes out the other ear, and you go home and deal with normal life. 2 days later, you've forgotten it. It's not infraneous. You're not practicing it every day, every moment. Infraneous. And now it's going to become an impromptu, and during the traumatic moment of the active shooter, due to crappy, bad training, you're going to be an impromptu puppet because no one's coming back to check on you. How many of you have been through active shooter training by a company, by a company or an establishment or corporation, whatever, a company that trains it at your workplace, your school, whatever your entity is? How many times have they came back to just double check and make sure everybody's up to standard in training? How many of you? You'd be surprised if, people would say, yeah, I want to know who the company is because there's no money. They're not getting paid for it. It's that one-time shot. Here's your PowerPoint. Here's your training for a couple of days. Here's trauma. Here's this. Here's what you do. Yeah. It's kind of like TECC and TCCC. It's kind of like medic stuff, man. Unless you do it, unless you stay up on it, you're not up onto the new trends. Yep. Learned that from a friend of mine out of North Carolina, the old tactical medic, paramedic, trauma guy, learning stuff that I learned, but he's learning the advanced part of it. And I'm like, crap, I'm behind the curve, man. A situation where laws create requirements, but refer no guidance on how to meet them safely. Yeah, laws. Intervention, failure. Look at law enforcement. Look at Uvalde, Texas. There's your perfect example. But the burden, falls on the public, the schools, forcing money. Yep, forcing money. Where do you think all that money goes? What about those private schools? All that tuition. You think it goes toward active shooter training, or does it go toward those high-end paychecks? Yeah. Well, this has been interesting. Put it in the chat. What are your thoughts? What are your ideas? We could do a whole 2, 3, 4 hour show on this. The surveillance, sales pitch, the security theory, marketplace, the corporation and the cost of fear, the policy of vacuum. Yeah. The vacuum would be legislative law, bureaucracy, politicians mandating drills, but not the regulation on how they're conducted. There are laws in states, all 50, specific entity of law written by bureaucrats, politicians on, got to have this mandatory, but there's no formal framework. So where's the quality? A vacuum policy exists when rules create obligation, but there's no true framework or guidance in the obligation other than here's the money, spend the money, or you won't get the money for the next class next year, or for Bob's active shooter class to show up at your doorstep and say, hey, are you ready for us to come retrain you in 6 months or a year later when you've forgotten everything they taught you last year? And then they have a new instructor, Cletus or Bob or Jimmy Jim, who's not as good as the last one. Yeah, just is what it is. The standards, carrying the standards out safely. Kind of makes you wonder, 2026, active shooters, where is the standard? Why is it the bottom line of fear? The alternative evidence, so to say. It changes every day, every incident. So there's no streamline. And you can blame the legislative body of your states, legislative body of the government, Congress, the House and the Senate, the downstream of harm. Yeah, got to have the arrest. Yeah, got to have the arrest, got to have the study, but it's all based on victimization and trauma. That's the evidence. Do we need counseling? Do we need relationship building to reduce this? What is the exigent circumstance? Psychopathy. Yeah, kind of like calling the BAU. Hey, predict all the active shooter events that are going to happen based on what you think. The majority of the time, it's going to be off kilter. 70, 80, perhaps sometime in behavioral guess, lower. How do I know? I've seen it. Lower. Lower. Spend a lot of time doing that. Those of you that know those, psychology mandatory hours that you have to spend just to get that piece of paper that says PhD doctor. Yep, you know what I'm talking about. The majority of it's a guess, unless you know the detailed amygdala hippocampus episodic memory trauma open redrawer. Yeah, open redrawer, because redrawing it back and forth. You got to pull it out. Sometimes you got to force it. And you have to do that with the victims of an active shooter event. And sometimes they're not going to tell you. We turn schools into a fortress. We turn corporations into a fortress. We turn businesses, establishments, whatever it would be, into a fortress of what? Potential threat and harm and internal fear, psychological. But where's the fortress of real training? Reliable. 100%. You're never going to get it. But you're going to be able to get the quality of the training. You're going to be able to assess the ones that have the skill. Peer review, case study, recent event that can actually put forth the effort versus cheap ass ex-cop, ex-military. I've got a company with all these guys that were in superstar groups or teams that think they know how to teach something. Listen to the linguistics. It's kind of like my buddy Foley. He hates that word bullet now, don't you? You just hate it.